3 infants were born on the same night in Henrico County, Virginia, in April 1802. 3 identical cries pierced the darkness of a plantation house, but only 2 children would be acknowledged by their mother. The third, darker-skinned than his siblings by what witnesses described as no more than a shade of summer sun, vanished from all family records within hours of his birth. What happened in that delivery room has remained buried in courthouse documents, private letters, and the whispered testimonies of enslaved women for over 2 centuries. Local authorities never investigated. The family's name was scrubbed from most historical accounts. Tonight, we piece together what really happened when Margaret Fairmont gave birth to triplets and made a decision that would destroy everyone involved. Before we continue with the story of the Fairmont Plantation and the night that changed everything, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now, because stories like this, the ones hidden in dusty archives and forbidden family histories, don't get told anywhere else. And leave a comment telling me what state or city you're listening from. I want to know where my audience is discovering these dark chapters of American history. Now, let's go back to Virginia in 1802, to a world where appearances meant survival, and one woman's fear would seal the fate of her own child. The spring of 1802 brought more than just warm weather to the tobacco plantations along the James River. Henrico County sprawled across the rolling hills of central Virginia, a patchwork of plantation estates where fortunes rose and fell with each tobacco harvest. The Fairmont Plantation occupied nearly 800 acres of prime river-bottom land, worked by 43 enslaved people whose labor had built the family's wealth over 3 generations. The main house stood on a gentle rise, a 2-story brick structure with white columns that could be seen from the river road, announcing prosperity to anyone who passed. Margaret Fairmont had arrived at this house 6 years earlier as a bride of 17, brought from her family's smaller estate in Williamsburg. She was the youngest daughter of the Sutherland family, a lineage that traced itself back to English nobility, a fact that Margaret's mother mentioned in every conversation. The marriage to Thomas Fairmont had been celebrated as a perfect match. Old money meeting established land, beauty paired with respectability. Thomas, 15 years Margaret's senior, ran his plantation with the methodical attention of a man who had inherited responsibility young and taken it seriously. But by 1802, that carefully constructed image had begun to show cracks that only those inside the house could see. Margaret had suffered 2 miscarriages in her first 3 years of marriage. The first had been mourned quietly. The second had sent her into a period of melancholy that lasted through an entire winter, during which she rarely left her bedroom. Thomas had grown distant, spending more time inspecting fields and riding to Richmond on business that seemed to multiply. The pressure for an heir weighed on them both, though it was Margaret who felt it most acutely. Her mother's letters arrived weekly, each one containing some reference to cousins who had produced children, neighbors whose families were growing, the natural duty of a wife to secure her husband's legacy. When Margaret finally conceived again in the summer of 1801, the entire household seemed to exhale. Thomas became attentive once more. Margaret's mother visited and pronounced the pregnancy blessed. The enslaved women who worked in the house prepared the nursery with unusual care, perhaps sensing that this child represented something more than just another birth. What no one anticipated was that Margaret carried not 1 child, but 3. The realization came late in the pregnancy. Dr. Edmund Yancey, who attended to the wealthier families in the county, had examined Margaret in February and detected what he described as unusual movement, suggesting multiple quickening. A second examination in March confirmed his suspicion. Margaret would deliver twins, possibly triplets. The news sent Margaret into a state that alternated between elation and terror. Thomas received the information with quiet satisfaction, already calculating the advantage of multiple heirs. But Margaret knew what others didn't, what she had never told anyone, not even her husband. She had reason to fear what these children might look like. Among the enslaved workers at Fairmont Plantation was a woman named Esther, who had been born on the property 28 years earlier.